Welcome to the Propreneur Podcast, where we help practice owners become better entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Dino Watt.
This is Penny Reed, author of Growing Your Dental Business, and you're listening to Best Practices with your host, Dino Watt.
Well, welcome everybody to the Best Practices Podcast. I'm your host, Dino Watt, and I'm excited again for another amazing episode. First of all, I want to say thank you so much for all of you that are tuning in and consuming all of this content here. I think our guests are top of the class, and I'm excited to have them. And today is definitely no exception. We are kindred spirits in one area that you will find out very quickly, but also she's my first guest that actually is an author of a book besides me, which is awesome. So my guest today is Penny Reed. Penny, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Dino.
Oh, I'm thrilled to have you. I'm very excited. I've been actually looking forward to this one because we can talk a lot of cool shop that we like together. So I'm excited about that for sure. Now, Penny, your book, Growing the Dental Practice, it actually is helping doctors do what exactly?
So, great question. This is the book that I wish I'd had as an office manager 27 years ago. So,
nice.
My primary focus is, and this is a lot of the processes that I use in my coaching, but let's say you have someone that says, I don't know if I'm ready for that, or I don't know if I'm ready for a coach or a consultant. It starts with, hey, these are the numbers you've got to know. And it's more of a systems and process book versus a culture and environment book. So it's more of the strategies, the how-tos. But a practice owner can read that book and grow their practice by 25% or more simply from reading the book and implementing what I outline in it.
That's awesome. One of the things that grabbed my attention around that is the 25% or more, right? Because I think sometimes people are, especially consultants, are afraid to say what they really believe they can do for you if you follow my steps. Mm-hmm. They'll be like, hey, we're going to get you, more engagement, or we're going to have a better workplace. But to be able to say, no, 25% or more, number one. Number two, 25% is an interesting number because in my industry with the ortho world, a lot of people are always focused on the 10% growth year over year. And they think that's like, if we're doing our 10%, we're doing great. I'm thinking, who wants to grow at 10% over year? That's 5 years just to get 50%. Like, no, let's go big numbers. And also that helps everybody on the team know, we're going for the big shot, not just, we're going to get by.
Right.
Before we get into all of that, though, I think it's really important. I want to go back. I want to just tell everybody a little bit about yourself, how you got into this business. You said you've been an office manager. Where did it get started for this passion for being in the dental world?
So it actually started when I was 12. Because I loved going to the dentist, but I didn't know it started then. I had my 7th grade science teacher, Karen Imes. Her husband is a dentist. And so she became a very important person in my life, not because I loved science, but she was my 8 a.m. teacher and the first grown-up I saw after I found out I had been cut from volleyball and basketball. And, she was there to kind of pick me up and say, it's okay, you should come out for track because everybody makes track. And I thought, don't you have to run? Not really into the whole running thing unless I'm going after a ball. She was a big mentor for me, wound up coaching me in some other sports later on. And actually it was her husband that approached me. I'd gotten a business degree, had been in management with a little company called the Walmart Corporation, had been in IT.
Startup.
Yeah, but I actually moved back from that to Memphis and bumped into him at church, and he took me to lunch. And any of you that have ever worked retail, especially because I've gone from the distribution center to the store where you're open 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, you're not working that much. But when you close and you're there until, well, now it's 24 hours a day, you're there till 1 a.m. and then you have to be back at 7 a.m. The dental practice was looking pretty good, right? I'm thinking no nights, no weekends, half-day Fridays. This won't be very stressful. And it was a great role, but I quickly learned that Walmart had procedures, systems, policies for everything and got into the dental office. And this was in 1992, I believe. Yes. Got into the dental office, and all of a sudden, I'm like, where's the book that tells how to do this? And I was handed a giant software manual. We were still on
Amazing.
DOS. We were still on DOS. Windows had been invented, but we didn't have it yet. We got that like a year later.
You were
And
printing out things dot matrix style with all
right, and then you'd tear it was like your homemade confetti. You do the claims, and then you would tear it, and the little I remember filing electronic claims for the first time and listening to the modem, do that.
the screen.
Yeah, I'm dating myself here. So worked for him, and we had one book. Well, he also showed me his perio textbook, because I said there has to be a book that had pictures in it. That was not for me. And then we had a book on making financial agreements. And so we sat down, looked at the numbers. He had done well, but because they were like family, I thought, you ought to be doing, like, I don't know what I don't know, but you should be doing better than this. You deserve to do better. So we actually hired a consultant, which is funny. A lot of office managers don't like consultants. I didn't realize that when I got into this. Like I guess they're thinking, why are you here? If I was doing my job, you wouldn't be here.
Right.
Not for me. Right. I'm like, woohoo, somebody's going to tell us what we can do to make this better, other than just coming in every day and being nice to people and trying harder.
Yeah.
And I caught the bug. So within about 6 months, I thought, that's what I want to do. And I told my doctor, I said, I'm not leaving yet. Let's get this done. I'll replace myself. I'll stay as long as you think it's, best. And then this is what I want to do. So that's been about 25 years ago now. And just a super great guy. Got to have coffee with him a couple of months ago, and just seeing his family. It's funny how relationships, it all kind of comes back to that.
Absolutely.
Who would have known?
Yeah, 100%. Right. And I have a saying that I use in my trainings often, where I'll say, I know that everything I've received up to this very moment, even you and I talking on the phone right now, has come due to a relationship that I built in some way. And everything I will receive from here on out will come from a relationship I am going to build some way. So why not focus on building relationships as opposed to all the other stuff that we talk about in business? And not that that's not important, but that obviously set you on a career path. It gave you sparked passion inside of you. It gave you ideas. It gave you an ability to kind of be fresh and new and different than what's going on out there. And that's what I really liked about listening to you. So Penny, the people who listen to this podcast, it's the best practices podcast, right? So there's people from all different types of industries, chiropractic and plastic surgery and dentistry and ortho. And one of the things that I want to do is always bring them fresh voices that can help them in their practice, even if they're not from that industry. And when I heard you at the Dental Speakers Institute where we met, I was like, wow, that's somebody who gets it, who understands that we have to be looking really outside of our industries in order to do better in our industries. Obviously you have your Walmart background, but one of your passions is Disney.
Yes.
And how did that come about? Is it just a lifelong thing? Is it?
So it's a, thank you for asking. It's like a conglomeration of things. So I first went to Disney for it was a lackluster experience. Again, around the age of 12, we drove from Memphis to Walt Disney World, which is far. And we were sort of passing through. It rained. It had been built up as this awesome experience. It rained. And at lunchtime, my dad looked at me and he said, we're leaving. I thought, wait a minute.
Wow.
What happened? Right. So we went back right after I graduated from high school, and all of a sudden it was like I was 5 years. I was like, oh, this is amazing. Epcot had just opened. So I really didn't grow up going. So I've made up for that. I think there's been years where I've gone 4 times in a year. When I first realized the business side was appealing to me was probably 8 years ago. And I did a behind the scenes tour at Magic Kingdom. Went through that and actually wound up making a friend of someone that works for Disney Institute. And I thought, oh, holy smokes, wait a minute. maybe I need to do that. I actually looked into and have talked with them. What would I have to do? But you have to go to work for Disney first, right? They don't just
Yep.
hire you
Yep.
from the outside. So I thought, well, I've taken a couple of the courses, learned what I could, and to me, it's amazing how those principles. I mean, look at Walt Disney World in Orlando. I believe the last count of employees that work for them just in that area, like 75,000 employees.
Wow.
And as one of my clients said when we were talking about this, she said, it will be interesting to see how they lead because they're outnumbered. Talking about the leaders. I mean, they're greatly outnumbered and they're not perfect, right? But what other business has scaled at that level and managed to maintain the brand, and they keep getting better in most cases. So that developed that passion. So it's part fun, right? I'm a big kid I've got a 20-year-old daughter, 20-year-old stepdaughter. I didn't have my stepdaughter until about 5 years ago. So I missed out on all of the animated movie years. But when Brooke would be watching something, half the time, if I could, I would be right there with her, right? We'd be singing songs. I'm just a big kid.
That's awesome. I think that's part of creating that passion. And what we do is to take it and bring it into the practices, right? And say, look, there's so many principles, and let's use Disney as an example. And as I actually worked for Disney when I was younger. I was a Disney dancer. It was a dream of mine when growing up. I lived in California, so Disney was a little more accessible to us. And I don't have a ton of memories of going to Disneyland as a kid. What I do have is that desire to I want to dance at Disney. And I love how you alluded to your lack of passion around running, like mine. It's like, I do not want to, like you said, with the track. I'm like, I saw those guys running track thinking, why would you choose to do that? Why would you just want to run in a circle or jump over things in a circle? But I always wanted to dance. And so dancing was my way in. And with Disney, I got to go through Disney University and I got to have that whole experience. And it really was something that I say to this day, ruined my eyes. It ruined me because now I look at everything through the lens of Disney. Mm-hmm. And even though that was 25 years ago, it still is one of those things that I look at, and I get to bring that to what I do. With you being able to look at your offices with your doctors and stuff, that's a good piece of it, because a lot of people, I use a lot of it of the culture part of it, mm-hmm. but you also incorporate the business side of things. Yes. And what you said just a moment ago is, look at the growth they've had as a business. They must be doing something right. Mm-hmm. Right?
Well, and it's the connection too between, and people have asked me about writing the book, and if you had it to do over, it's sort of a catch-22, because I still would have written this book, but there's another book in me, which right now I'm working on one on case acceptance, but there is another book in me on the culture piece, because if that's not in place, it doesn't matter. If you think about Disney World, it doesn't matter how great your rides are, how wonderful your funnel cakes are, or the food, or the shows, because it's the people that drive the performance. And that's if that's not where it needs to be. And it's not only, with the internal part, you've got to have the internal part before you can do it externally. So no, I love that you say that it changed you. It's funny going to the parks and then doing those tours and those courses. It's impacted me too. And part of it is, I think, deep down inside, most of us are still big kids. I mean, we can relate to the things that we related to then. And I joke with my clients and my audiences, but I say, you know what? Number one, I just need to apologize in case I burst into song, because it's been known to happen for random reasons. Awesome. But if we think about that, every day in your practice is like a Broadway production, right? Mm-hmm. There's no business like smile business, right? Which could be any type of practice, but it's starring, right? And your lead roles are your doctors, and then we have all sorts of supporting roles on stage, off stage, and it's all part of the show, right? And it's not that we're not sincere in the show, but there are certain things that must happen in order for us to be at our potential. When we're within earshot or visibility of the patients, there are certain things that we need to be off stage for.
Yep.
And if somebody forgets their lines and you have an audience out there, do you just sit there and look at them and think, oh, like the
Not my
doctor,
job.
well, he or she didn't say that, so I guess we're done. No, you
Yep.
would prompt them.
Yep.
Right. And so if you can begin to look at it that way, I think it does change how we think about work. And would we have a conversation on the stage and ignore the audience? No, but we do
Right.
it in most businesses every single day. I'm a terrible consumer. I'm a terrible customer. I have to watch myself every now and then. I'll be like,
yep.
Excuse me, maybe you didn't see me. And I'm trying to remember where I was. I was on the road somewhere and I'd stopped, and she goes, oh no, I saw you. This was not a dental office. She says, oh no, I saw you. I was just finishing up telling her a story about blank. And I thought I'd already waited 2 minutes. Again,
Wow.
It's like a quick mart. And in my brain, I thought, this is probably your destiny to be here.
Yeah.
If that's
right.
That's your idea of customer service.
It's so funny you say it. Yesterday, I was walking. Oh, I was going to. Do you guys have Zupas out there where you live? It's like a soup and salad place.
No, it sounds good.
Yeah, it's great. I walk into it, and as I'm walking in, there's an employee walking out, obviously done with their shift. And I go to the door, and I go to grab the door, and I open it, and they look at me, and they go, oh, and they walk. Anyways, in my head, I was like, see, if I was you, I would, as an employee, now as a normal citizen, I probably would go, oh, thank you for opening the door. But as an employee, I would say, oh, please go ahead. You're my guest, you're my customer. I'm going to let you go first because I'm part of that. So so I tell people, just like I say, it ruined me. My goal when I go into offices, I tell my clients this, all the team members, I say, my goal is to ruin you. And they always look at it like, that's weird. I'm like, no, I want to ruin you here, so that wherever you go from here, when you walk out the doors, if you have to be transferred or if you decide to go somewhere else or quit or whatever, that every other job you have, you go, well, this is nice, but it's not Dr. So-and-so's office.
Right.
I want that, number one. And number two, I want to ruin our patients so that when they come in, they have a level of expectation of how you treat them, whether that's they get a handshake every single time. They get spoken to looking in the eyes. They get, their favorite drink is waiting for them as they show up. Whatever it is, that when they go to their chiropractor, when they go to their other doctor, that they're looking at that going like,
yeah, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed when I'm everywhere other than when I'm at your business.
Like you make me feel a certain way. And if you think about it, Disney has done that so well because when you go to other parks, you judge them.
Absolutely.
Judge it by like, oh, it's not as clean as it is at Disney. I mean, I got in cheaper, but it's not as clean.
Right.
And Universal has done a good job of realizing that now and trying to change that with Harry Potter and all that. But still, the king is Disney. We could talk about Disney all day long.
Oh, we could. It could be. We could see how long we could do it. Maybe we could set a Guinness World Record. That would be a good one.
We could do a Facebook Live where all we do is just talk about all the benefits and love of Disney. And here's the thing. I actually now, my love of Disney has actually transformed. Before it was very much of the youthful thing and the fun, and still to a piece that's there. But I actually go every time kind of seeing, all right, how is this going to affect my business? Because what I can incorporate in my business or my team members and my client's business, I see them very much through a business sense of thinking, oh, that's so smart. Same way I look at Apple, same way I look at like Zappos and other companies like that. But let's get into the meat here because you have 5 steps that I think can really help practice owners, no matter what the practice is, understand how to increase the practice. Obviously, the name of the show is Best Practices. What are these 5 best practices that you think can help out or can help out these business owners?
Sure. And depending on the type of practice, so practices that have a recare department, all 5 of these will apply. There will be a few of them that will apply to all of them, and then 1 or 2 that may not be as applicable. Let's just say if you have an endo practice, hopefully you don't have a lot of recare, right? People are having a root canal and then they're healed and they're
coming
done.
back.
So I began to look at and run the math on, when you mentioned the 10%, I think one reason why practices look at it and say, okay, well, our goal is to grow 10% because it would be nice. Well, of course, we don't want to stay flat. We don't want to shrink, but 10% sounds safe. And that was sort of where I started. And I began to do the math and I thought, okay, what if we grew, and I'll go through the different areas, but what if we grew 5 different areas by 10%? And then I actually wound up dialing back on one of them to 5% instead of 10 because the math was so crazy with the growth that I thought people would look at it and go, oh, she's nuts. Like on paper, that looks great, but you can't do that. So I won't keep people in suspense anymore. The first one is to increase your new patients, which is where, that's usually everybody's directing most of their energy toward getting that new customer, right? Getting the new patient. And we do need them. So if we increase new patients by 10%, the next is increasing, again, depending on the type of practice, that active patient base by 10%. So, and I hear different numbers in the book. I talk about 24 months. So if someone's been in your practice in the last 24 months, I would consider them to be active unless they've moved, right? They still think that you are their doctor, right? That this is where they come for that. For the practices that have a true recare, right? So a pediatric dental office, a general dental office, a perio practice, optometry, where you've got people, chiropractic, people coming in routinely. If we can increase the percentage of the active client base, patient base by 10% just in that part, right? And doing the math on that. The next one, and this used to be where I spent, and obviously it can make or break a practice for sure, but I would spend an awful lot of time focusing primarily on the schedule. And the schedule is super important, but it's actually increasing efficiency. And so we began to look at not only how, doctors would call me and they'd say, oh, can you please come in and help us? I need you to work with the front desk team, and we need you to help them schedule. Well, scheduling is a team sport, and we can only schedule to the level of which we're efficient. So we look at how do we get, and I say, an hour smarter a day, right? 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the afternoon. And it's not only scheduling, it may be an assistant learning how to do something that she doesn't know how to do, or a hygienist that maybe you don't realize in your state yet that they could give anesthesia, or they can, but you're not having them do it. Well, we look at, what would the impact of that be, right? So if we can increase that efficiency 10%, and then last but not least, and this is the one that I dialed back to 5%, and that's increased case acceptance, which I have a huge passion around a lot of things, but I would say, as far as a system goes right now, I'm more on fire about that than I am about anything else, because that's the true, you want to work smarter and not harder, then you continuously get better at engaging your patient base on what their goals are, what they value, and getting more yeses. The whole I'll think about it, or everybody that walks out the door doesn't accept ideal treatment, it hurts you. So if we increase that by 5%, that's another 1 out of 20. 1 out of 10, I was kind of getting some.
Man, you are so nice.
Yeah. So 1 out of 20. But if you do all of that, right, and you could even do the other, I wanted people to look at this and go, there's nothing about that I can't do. Kind of like, and I think you and I may have joked about this in our previous conversation a few days ago, is let's look at Weight Watchers. Mm-hmm. All right. I mean, that's probably partly where I learned some of my coaching skills, because I got to join Weight Watchers when I was 8 years old. That's a whole nother funny little story, which I won't go into. But if you think, oh my goodness, I need to lose 20 pounds, I need to lose 30 pounds, and you're just overwhelming. So you're overwhelmed, you don't do anything. But yet, if you kind of break it down and make it doable, it's those little steps that add up to the big steps. And so the first is, I want someone to look at a plan and go, yeah, it's going to take some commitment, right? It's going to take changing some habits, but we can totally do this and begin to get some wins in quickly, as opposed to, and I'm sure you've seen it, those that have dabbled with several different consultants and think that they haven't found the right one.
Right.
And often probably one of the ones that they worked with would have been great, right? But it's more what's going on in here for them.
100%. Okay, I love all those 5. I wrote some notes as you were talking because I'm actually going to work backwards. First of all, I said you're so nice because you're
too nice.
Only asking them to do one more out of the 10. Yeah. And I'm a huge fan of the sales process. When you talk about case acceptance, right? There's a difference between people who can present a case and those who can close a case. I compare it to golfing, right? There are 2 different games. You can drive that ball really, really well, but if you can't putt, you're not going to win. It's just not going to happen. And so case acceptance, the closing of having people say yes to treatment, that is, to me, one of the most important things. And so that you're being very, very nice and saying, look, I'm just looking for 5%. 5%.
Well, and it's because even 5% is just a game changer. That's I'm too nice.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's a matter of being able that, I just think that if they would focus on changing that sales process, look, like you said, people are VBACs, right? Oh, I'll come back, or I'll talk to my spouse or whatever. I was literally, before our call here, I had an ortho appointment from my doctor who's doing my Invisalign. And I helped their treatment coordinator with their sales process and things like that. And she pulls me in, she's asking me questions about certain things. And she's saying, man, I'm getting a lot of, I got to go talk to my spouse, or I've got to think about it, patients. And I said, oh, well, you realize that's not a you problem, that's the setup problem. That's the you haven't taught your directors of first impressions, which a lot of people call their front desk people or their phone people. You haven't taught them to set you up to win. You need to do that. So that conversation, I think, is so important. And then the second one, schedule efficiency. Penny, I don't know how many times I've had this conversation where I come from the entrepreneur world, right? I never worked in an office, but what I do is I look in and I see, well, that doesn't really work in the real world of business. So why don't we act like a business owner and do it the right way? Business owners, for example, have a tendency to make sure that what they're doing will allow them to project what they're going to make next month based upon their closings, how many closings they know they're going to be able to have, or based upon how many appointments they're going to have and what their closing ratio is. If I have a schedule that I don't have set up for success, then I'm just like throwing darts and hopefully I'm going to hit something. And I have no idea of what's going to happen next month. I can't calculate my money this month for next month. And that is stress, frustration, and overwhelm. So when doctors get overwhelmed like that, it's total goes back to schedule. I'm so glad you talked about that. That is so important for people to understand. Sorry, I can go off on that.
No, hey, I know. We love this stuff, right? It's easy to get excited.
Yeah, it's so true. All right, so if everybody listening would just look at those 5 areas and focus on those, look, 10% each area. And really, I love it when you really do look at the numbers. All right, for every 10 people, you're going to increase that by 1. If you have 100 patients coming in this month and you want to increase that by 10%, that's only 10 people. So how can you get, so many people think, they overthink it, right? Like, oh, I need more patients. Well, what is more patients? What does more patients mean? Oh, a lot. More. Well, that's not an actual number. Give me a number. Oh, 10% more? That's 10 more people. You can't find a way to get 10 more people. Well, then you can train your people to ask for it. You can make sure you're actually checking your ROI and your marketing. There's so many things you can do.
Absolutely. Well, especially when you break it down. Again, that's kind of the whole, all right, break it down. It's like, all right, 10 a month. So that's, 2.1 or 2.2 a week, or let's just even say if you said 3 a week, right? So that's one more a day, not even every day if they're open 4 days a week. And when you do that, all of a sudden it's like the light bulb comes on and it's like, oh, well, 1 more a day. That seems pretty doable.
Right. It's totally doable. it's interesting you mentioned the Weight Watchers thing, right? Because with tracking, right? That's Weight Watchers, that's their success, is tracking and being able to look at and breaking it down. We don't, if I come into Weight Watchers and say, okay, I want to lose 50 pounds in the next 30 days. Right. Well, that's really not doable, but can we do, I mean, in a healthy way, I should say.
Right.
Can we do this where if you lost 10 pounds in the next 30 days, would that be an achievement?
Right.
There's a great book called Ask, and John Acuff, and he talks about how too often we create these goals that are either too high, where if we cut them in half, it'd still be an achievement.
Right.
Or too soon. We give us such a small period of time to do it. But if we wanted to lose 50 pounds, if we lost 50 pounds in 3 months, wouldn't that be cool?
Oh, yeah.
Right. Changing it up a little bit, the mindset between, we have this weird thing where we have to do it now. And I think a lot of times practice owners, like you said, if this one consultant didn't get everything that I wanted out of them, then they were no good. I got to move on to the next thing. It's like, well, what's going on up here? What's going up on your head, to where could you give them more time? Could you give yourself more time? Could you actually chunk it down? There's so many things around it. We could unwrap it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's go into our questions period, where we like to ask you a few questions, get your opinions. It's kind of rapid fire. And for those of you that are listening, I understand we've gone a little longer, but come on, these are all gems. So this is awesome. I love it.
Good times.
It's good times. That's right. So Penny, let's go through these questions and find out your answers to, first of all, what is the most expensive thing that you think private practice owners are missing in their practice right now?
So one would have to be what we talked about. It's the case acceptance piece, and finding out any pushback that you get most of the time comes from, we really don't understand what's most important to the patient and what their goals are. Right? We just jump straight into presenting, and then here's the money part. And it's like, what's that going to cost? Does my insurance pay for that? And that's just a symptom. With the more of that you're hearing, the more that's telling me we're not doing our work on the, not only at the front, but also once we're sitting back there knee to knee, whether we're diagnosing the child, or the parent. And then I had another one too. And I think the other part is it's the phone. We've got to fix the phone. It's better in dentistry than it is in some other industries, but it still is mind-boggling that even though people are starting to schedule some online, most of the new patients coming in, it's phone. And when we do telephone mystery shopping with our clients, I mean, literally it makes me sick sometimes with the newer clients, or if we let people on the phone before they really know what they're doing, because it's a reflection. Doctors, this is the best thing that I know to tell you, is that person answering the phone, that's you. I think back to the Bugs Bunny. I remember on Saturday morning cartoons, cartoons used to only come on for the most part on Saturday morning.
That's right.
And it would be first base, Bugs Bunny, second base, Bugs Bunny, shortstop, Bugs Bunny. If you, the practice owners, could be the ones on the phone, right? You would probably be some of the best ones to be on it, because you would sound like you enjoy being there, and that you're passionate about what you're doing. Having a lackluster, I'd rather have somebody excited that just says, oh, you know what, I'm new, let me check on that for you, than someone that sounds like we woke them up from a nap. Or they don't want to be there. If they don't want to be there, why do I want to schedule? Am I going to, in my brain, I don't think, the rest of your business is probably fantastic. No, it's all being represented by, little Miss or Mr. Lackluster that's picking up your phone.
So I refuse to call those people the receptionist, the front desk person, the secretary, any of that. I tell them they are the director of first impressions.
I love that.
And if you don't take on that title, and as a doctor or a business owner, you don't understand that you have to hire someone who is going to be the director of first
impressions, absolutely,
then you are losing out big time. It's fascinating.
They have to have a voice for phone. Right? There are some people that are super talented, but they need to be processing insurance claims in a cubicle somewhere because it's not their gift to be on the phone. And if people will say, well, can you help them? And then I say, well, have you ever seen the movie My Fair Lady? Right, where Henry Higgins, right, to throw down a challenge, he takes this
changes Eliza's voice.
British redneck is basically what she, but he spends like 24 hours a day. I'm like, maybe with that, but probably not.
Well, and the thing is, it's not necessary, right? It's okay to say that, oh, you're not a fit for this part.
That, sure.
But let's go find the person who is a fit.
Well, it's just like a basketball team, right? Everybody doesn't need to be 7'6".
That's right.
Some people need to be a little shorter and,
can run faster.
Having the right people in the right place.
100%. All right. Love it. Okay. So what's a book that you feel like every private practice owner should read?
So when you told me you were asking this question, my first pick is actually one that and this was when I knew, I was like, I've got to talk to Dino more, because he's the only other person. I think it was you that said this. If Disney ran your hospital, 9.5 things you would do differently. Were you the one that I heard mention that book?
No, okay. But that's a very interesting book.
It was not you. All right. So I first read this book. I don't know, I had a vision for doing a Disney event for dental professionals. And I think actually, as my buddy at Disney Institute said, you ought to read the book. It's great. Oh my goodness. I mean, just ding, ding, ding. So many lessons in there about culture and really about bringing the business side and the value side, that passion of Disney into a medical arena, and especially into a hospital where, you know what, some of us may not really be in the mood to go to the chiropractor or the dentist or, the dermatologist or what have you. Rarely are we in the mood to be in the hospital. Yeah, right? I mean, that's just a completely different level. But the author, Fred Lee, was one of the few people that did not work for Disney, but was brought on as a Disney Institute cast member. He was a hospital CEO, and for a short time, he did both. But the book is amazing. Every practice owner needs to read that book.
I will be.
It also talks about, without getting too far, it also talks about when you've got individuals, whether this talks about leaders. I think it's anyone on the team that has been there and actually knows what they should be doing and still isn't doing it. Yeah. I'm just going to leave you hanging on a cliff. One of the best books and stories that I've ever heard relating to that.
Wow. I'm excited about that. That's good. I always love new books. I love discovering gems. So thank you for that. That's great. Yeah. So speaking of books, you're an author. I wrote my book, The Practice RX. And in there, I talk a lot about culture and team transformation and performance. What do you see as the biggest challenge when it comes from private practice owners when it comes to their teams and their culture?
So again, I'm going to have two answers. I think the structure or strategy answer would be often the expectations are not clear, right? So it's, I want this. I told you that I wanted, I told them once in a meeting that I wanted that. But what really I think is at the heart of it is most individuals do not feel that they're appreciated. And I had a few years back, and you may have a different theory than this, but I think for the most part, any individual that's been in the same line of work for whether it's 15 years, let's just say 15 years or more, I think you every now and then come to the point where you might be a little burned out maybe, or you're looking at, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? And I had a moment like that back in 2013, 2014, before I wrote the book. And I became a certified Dale Carnegie trainer. A buddy of mine from high school and college owned some of the franchises. I took the course years ago and I thought, you know what, rather than just saying, I want to do something different, I'll get certified to do something different and then see, I could always make the shift. Dale Carnegie was brilliant. I mean, I think we underestimate, and that would have been my other book, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Great book.
But there is no substitute for honest and sincere appreciation. And it takes intentionality. It takes time. I've yet to see a practice where if they didn't have at least close like B level, right? Maybe not an A plus, not a C, but some B level business strategies. Yet there's this culture of appreciation. The team knows that the doctor doesn't mean that they tolerate, things that are out of bounds, but they know that they're cared about. It's not just contests to win prizes and
Yes.
fun activities, which those are great too, right? On occasion, but it's, if I'm in an environment where I've got all these incentives and I'm continuously having to jump through a hoop, right? Jump through a hoop, get praise, jump through a hoop, get praise. Well,
Yep.
then that somewhat tells me that if I don't make it through the hoop, that you're unhappy. You know what I'm saying? That I'm not valuable
Yeah.
to you.
Yeah.
And so I think that the relational aspect of the honest and sincere appreciation, it's huge. And I watched in the 2 years that I did that. Here's what's crazy. My business grew as a result of me going through that because it changed me.
Sure.
Right. The reason I was burned out was me. Right. Yeah. It was all me. But watching people from all walks of life, none of these people were in any sort of healthcare, which was super helpful. Right. But still facing the same challenges that, whether they were McDonald's supervisors, attorneys, working for a utility company, fill in the blank.
Yeah.
But they're pressured to do more volume at a higher quality in less time with fewer people.
Right.
That sounds like, right? That sounds like dentistry.
Totally. Yep.
So that's my really long answer to your question.
Well, but what I love about it is that I have found that over and over and over again that everyone eventually has the same question. Mm-hmm. Like every business owner deals with the same thing. My new book coming out, I'm gonna, at the very beginning of it, I talk about how, hey, just so you know, there's no good people to hire anymore. There's no people, once you do hire them, you're gonna have to give them everything they ever wanted, and pay for everything. All they care about is cash. All they really want is for you to work for them, whatever. Like how do I know that? It's because all the business owners have told me this.
Right.
Right? Like they all believe this, and it's not true. It's just something that they have this belief system. And I believe that so many business owners have the same problems and challenges over and over again, that if we just, that it's universal, is what it is. Mm-hmm. Before we get on to the last part, I definitely want to make sure everybody knows, how do they get a hold of you? Number one, how can they get to your book? And number two, how can they reach out to you if they need to?
Okay. At this time, the best way to get the book would be to go to Amazon.com.
Awesome.
And it's growing your dental business, Penny Reed. And best way to reach me would be email. Okay. And I know you'll have it in the show notes, but it's penny@dentalcoachinginstitute.com.
Great. Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, for people who are just listening to this, penny@dentalcoachinginstitute.com. Definitely will be in the show notes as well. And all of your ideas and thoughts, and even the book, the link to the book will be in the show notes. Okay. What's the best advice that you've ever received in business or in life?
So I'm going to quote the Dale Carnegie, and I quote him. I don't know that I'll say it exactly right, but it's basically that you'll accomplish more in 2 months by becoming sincerely interested, genuinely interested in other people, than you will in 2 years by trying to get people interested in you.
Nice.
And it is amazing when you put that into practice. All of a sudden, so much easier to win people over to what it is that you want them to do, right? Yeah. Because they feel it's like, this person is interested in me, they're invested in me, and I want to do whatever I can. I mean, I'm going to take this back to the dentist that I went to work for and his wife. That is what got me engaged with them. They felt like family. And I looked and I was like, well, the practice sort of looks like it's winning. The team is winning. You're doing things for us. The practice is growing. You're not winning at the level that you need to be winning. And I saw it. I didn't do it because he asked me. Does that make sense? I did it because I saw it and I had that level of care for them, but it was because of how they had treated me and that they believed in me.
Reciprocal, right? Like you show me that you're interested in me and care about me. I naturally, I want to be able to then show that I care about you, because it just goes back and forth. It's so important. It's one of the reasons why I believe when people in the office feel disrespected or not cared for, it's like oxygen, right? You never don't notice it until it's gone.
Right. I love that.
You're grasping for it, right? So if you're going to show disrespect or you're not going to show them that you care, they're going to stop breathing, meaning they're going to stop living in your office, and they're going to find something else, or they're just going to continue their job. They act like zombies when they walk in. Why are my people not engaged? Well, because they don't feel like you care about them.
Absolutely. Well, no, I mean, it's if I don't feel appreciated, it very closely links to I really don't feel respected. You know, I mean, I don't know what the relationship exactly is between the two of those, but I know that there is one, right? Absolutely. So you don't value me, you don't respect me, and even if the benefits are great, right? After a while, there's just only so much of that I can take.
Yep, that wears off for sure. Okay, what's the best resource or tool that you think every private practice owner should be using to grow their practice?
So in the dental world, I would say, and you and I talked about this a little bit, there's a software that I am loving. It's called Dental Intel. It interfaces with the practice management software. So it's like a sales dashboard for your practice management software. The other, for those that are not, I would say a tool like Care Credit or a patient financing tool, because we live in a country, you know what, people are living in houses that are nicer than they've ever lived in. They're driving nicer cars. They're wearing nicer clothes. And I know in the dental world, a study that the American Dental Association did in 2013 is, hey, patients are having to come up with more out of pocket, and they've got to have the want to, but they also have to have the means. And so in the dental world, where the average spend, you know, for an adult, maybe $800 a year. And yet now with what the fees are, if you don't have a dental benefit plan, that's basically 2 recare exam, like 2 cleanings and necessary x-rays, maybe a couple of fillings. And yet we're trying to, you know, sell more implants and do more Invisalign, more big cases. And we get them all excited, and then we show them how much it is. And even Disney, right? I mean, this is another one of these, if you watch, I love to watch how they shift what they offer from the theme parks. Now they have a pass that starts at noon and it goes till later in the day. You can go ahead and book your trip and you can make payments on it. They don't call it this, but it's kind of like layaway.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Sure.
And so that they're one of the best at separating people from their money. Right. I mean, it's just genius. So either A, looking for ways to up the team accountability, or the other is, if people really want what you have and you don't want to be the bank, then you need to have an easy resource that's part of that closing. But it's just a slam dunk. The I'll think about it is the kiss of death.
It totally is. The be-backs, 100%. Well, Penny, you are a wealth of knowledge and a ton of fun. And thank you so much for being a part of the show and sharing your wisdom with everybody here. For those of you listening, please go seek out Penny. Go get her book on Amazon. It would be cool if we saw a little spike with buying her book out there.
It'd be awesome.
Connect with her at Penny at Dental Coaching Institute. Like I said, all of the notes and the connections and everything will be in the show notes, and excited for you. Thank you, Penny, so much. I'm excited to just continue this conversation and this relationship with you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. I've had a blast.
Well, everybody, have an amazing day. I know I really appreciate your time. You know, maybe we'll split this into 2 episodes because we did go a little bit longer, but I hope that everybody got their joy out of it, because, man, if you're talking about great stuff and you're getting great information, then, you know, really, what is time but just passing right before us? I love it. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you on the next episode of Best Practices Podcast. Thanks so much again for listening to the Propreneur Podcast. We really appreciate your support. If you haven't subscribed already, please make sure you do so. Also, if you feel like you might be a good fit for our podcast as a guest, or know somebody who you think would be, go ahead and email us at dino@dinowatt.com. Again, thanks for support. We'll see you on the next episode.